popcorn. We are two niggas spoiling movies. Yeah. Brandon Collins, that's me, and Justin Brown for your movie needs. Media popcorn. Woo! You haven't seen it, well, we're gonna spoil it. Spoil it in your face. That's your warning. So if you get pissed, it's all your fault. Woo-hoo. Woo-hoo.
That's right, folks. This is Sun-Dried Tomatoes. We're talking about X-Men 97. And to help us break down this incredible show for our 700th episode, or so at least we think. Justin and I, we sometimes ain't good with numbers.
I'm sorry.
Of course, we got my co-host, Wonderkin Justin Brown.
Yes, that's I. I don't even know what that means. Did you say Wonderkin?
Yeah. So, and then the illustrious Tatiana.
Oh my, your teachers must be so proud of you both. One can't count and one can't speak.
Oh, geez. Well, it's Miss Johnson's fault. And then to help us also break this down, special guest favorites of the show, Rod and Karen for the Black Guy Tips. How y'all doing?
Great.
Good. We doing good over
Thank
here.
you for having us.
Thank you for joining us. And we thought it was appropriate, this milestone to have two of our biggest cheerleaders on the show. Y'all just been messing with us for a long time through thick and thin, through Lady Ghostbusters and Butcher and Black Panther names, to celebrating us and saying, we got the best theme song in the game.
Y'all do. It goes
to this day.
I always sing it.
I stand on.
I was trying to behave myself because we was recording.
Yeah, I didn't want to interrupt
right
recording, but it's hard to listen and not sing along.
Preach.
We appreciate y'all. And this is different because we typically don't talk about TV series, but X-Men was just having such a huge cultural moment. And Justin and I were constantly texting like every week about it. Tati and I watched it all the time. She's the one that came up with watching it on Saturday mornings to go for the full nostalgia, which is smart. I don't know why they didn't release it on Saturday mornings, but what have you. But the thing is, I just showed the theme song for the updated version, and Disney Plus has the audacity to be like, skip the intro, and you're like, nigga, why would we? Why would we do that?
Especially since if you were paying attention, the intro changes in every episode.
Yes,
it changes depending on what's going on, who's on the team, who's no longer the team, who's no longer on Earth.
Literally.
Yes.
Literally.
Yes.
So like there's a lot of Easter eggs which actually lie in the intro, which is dope. And like I love the fact that they went that far, as it was like, hey, every second of this show actually matters. I love it.
Yes, it does. And they even did something as you could tell who was going to be the person that the episode was going to be about, because there was the first voice you would hear.
Yes, interesting. I didn't
previously on X-Men.
Yeah, when they would say previously on X-Men, whoever that person's voice was would be who the primary person that they would follow through the episode.
Yep.
Damn, they were pulling a Lost on us, and I didn't even realize. Oh shit. Well,
no games.
Well, let's talk about our history with the X-Men animated series, particularly the 1992-1997 run. Rod and Karen, like, what was your relationship with the X-Men show? Did you watch it? Did you like it? Like, what were your all's experiences with that growing up?
Well, for me, I definitely watched it. I was a comic book reader, so I had really gotten into comic books right around that time. My dad, I still remember the birthday he took me to Heroes Aren't Hard to Find, and told me I could buy anything, I could get anything I wanted. And I just kept bringing back more books and looking at them like, you sure? And he's like, no, get some more. I'm like, okay, and I come back and
you're messing up.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, oh, do you need to know the price? And but yeah, Chris Claremont, I think, was right. That was his run at the beginning of that, and I just happened to. That was exactly when I started catching up on X-Men. So I was huge into the cartoon. The cartoon was always interesting because it was behind where the comic books were.
Mhm.
So the stuff we're covering now in 2024 is exactly what I had started reading. So
wow.
it's really been interesting to watch like some of my favorite story arcs become, canonized in this cartoon, such as Operation Zero Tolerance, the thing that Magneto does to Wolverine.
Yeah,
That was
like
wild.
yeah, like trauma. When you talk about trauma as like 14-year-old Rod, just reading that panel and being like, "What the fuck?" Like so. Yeah, I heavily was into it, but I must admit, I don't remember the end. I'm sure I watched it
Same.
all, but it's like it became a blur after like season 3. Because also when we were coming up, cartoons weren't always consistent. Like
No.
shows now are so much more consistent and being like, this is when the season starts, this is when it's over. With social media, we have so much more access
Yep.
to like production schedules.
You
Back
could
then, as a
DVR
kid,
stuff.
you would watch 75 repeats of X-Men on Saturday, and then just one day it would be new. And you like, I didn't see that episode before. And so I don't remember the ending, but I do remember watching them all.
I'm so glad you said that, Rod, because at first I thought, like, when I was a kid, I'm like, am I going crazy? Like, I feel like I've seen this episode of Doug before. And then, like, oh, then there's a new episode. Yeah. Justin, I saw you wanted to say something.
So, just to give a little clarity on here, the actual production of the original X-Men animated series was a complete and utter mess because they didn't think it was going to be the success that it actually turned out being. So, a lot of these episodes were turned out of order. And because it was coming from wherever it was being produced, it was I believe it was somewhere in Asia, and they were just getting episodes animated, and they were just like, oh, this is what we're doing, and then they just sent them in. So that's why the
Wow.
whole thing was a complete and utter shit show. There is oh my god, I can't remember the video, but I watched the video specifically about the X-Men series. This is actually before this was actually announced, speaking about how this whole series was just the biggest mess, and no one thought it was actually going to be as big as it turned out to be, and how it even happened. But at some point they're just like, okay, I guess we need to figure our shit out. But then if you also notice that there's points where the animation is a little different and it switches up a little bit, and then it kind of switches back.
Karen, what was your experience with the X-Men series?
For me, I didn't read the comic books. Still haven't read any. I'm just coming from my perspective. Still haven't read any of the comic books. I did watch the cartoon. I enjoyed the cartoon, but similar to Roger, it was all over the place. So for me, I would actually need to sit down and kind of rewatch the original, like the original one. But for me, I think that I love the characters. It brought me into the characters. I knew who the characters were, so that when the movie started and all that stuff, I was all in. A lot of my comic book, quote unquote, nerdum came through cartoons and TV series and movies. And then for me, I went backwards. I went to the comic books. And so people underestimate the power of these movies. When people who know it and who love it just shit on it like it ain't nothing. I want good quality movies because for me, this is my comic book. I don't want them bullshitting on it just because they don't want to stick to the corny costumes and the one-liners and all that stuff. It means something to me to consume it as a consumer. And the thing is, you want to sell a comic book, so you want to get casual people like me into your world.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I want to kind of put a pin in that because I think that that's an interesting conversation to have about the MCU, which we got to kind of like talk about, like, does this factor into that? If not, it's a separate thing, Marvel animation. But Tatiana, what was your experience in the relationship with the X-Men series in the 90s?
Yeah, so X-Men was actually like my first like big kid cartoon that I was able to watch. Because in 1992, it was a whole six. So prior to that, it was all PBS, right? Because we didn't have cable. So it was all anything that was on
Yes.
anything that was on PBS, like my mom was for it. But this was like the age where my mom was like, all right, now you can start watching other things. So at this time, I really got into The Simpsons, which came on Sunday nights. But then Saturday mornings, I used to like wake up and just find whatever was on. And so that's where you get like the whole like X-Men, Power Ranger, like Spider-Man eventually turns into like Electric Shock, like all of that like stuff. But anyways, so for me, it was like I legit used to just like wake up, pour myself a bowl of cereal because I wasn't allowed to touch the stove, and just sit there and eat cereal while my mom slept. and watch X-Men. And for me, it was particularly powerful because everything up until this point, everybody in my life was, or like, as far as representation goes, for seeing like myself on TV, came from predominantly Black TV. So came from like the Cosby Show, came from like A Different World, and eventually would turn into Living Single and all of that stuff. So a lot of that sort of like Black family and Black comedy era. But Storm was the first cartoon character where I was like, oh snap, I could be Storm. Like I could be Storm on Halloween, because you were always just like, oh, you're the brown version of this or the Black version of that. And so I was like,
Right.
oh, but I could legit be Storm and just be Storm.
Right.
Like, so that's my connection.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about being called Black Wolverine, which is a bit that Rest in Power Kevin Barnett used to have in a stand-up. Yeah. But Justin, what was your relationship with the X-Men series growing up when you were 55?
Very funny, Brandon. So unlike everybody else, I didn't get to watch this on Saturday mornings because Saturdays my dad was home and he was watching News 12. He was watching those reruns go back and forth all day.
Like all day?
Yeah. I had an old ass father. Come on. I live with an old nigga. So typically I was watching it when I got home from school. So when it had its run, I think it was on Fox, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
At
So
least in New York.
yeah. So I typically watched it on Fox, and like Rod said, catching it out of order, like what's going on with this series, because I don't think that they ever truly aired it in order at any point. Even after things got kind of fixed up. So I was always confused by the series. But the series also, this was my introduction to the X-Men as a whole, because we weren't a big comic book household and things like that. I think through the cartoon, I remember I saw, I went to the 7-Eleven, which also sold comic books, and that's where I saw a Wolverine comic book, and I bought my first Wolverine comic book, and then that's kind of how I got started, into it. But even so, I didn't really follow the comics that closely until like I became more of an adult. But it was my introduction to everything. So like this was X-Men for me until I reached those post teenage years.
Yeah, I was like a lot of you all. I watched it like as it came out, like, and it was always out of order. And I think with Rod's issue with like saying like I've seen this before, right? That actually made me kind of pause on watching it. I started going to more like Nickelodeon shows because those are more consistent, right? Like I was like, I'm trying to like watch like a story thread, like if that's what you're gonna give me. And I think Spider-Man, the animated series, was a lot better in being like chronological because they had like a lot of like 2-3 part arcs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so I would pop in on X-Men, but it wasn't consistent to the point where like I don't remember the ending. I just remember it one day.
And
Was
this was also
there.
before DVR.
Right.
Yep.
It was before on-demand replays and stuff. So like I remember, do y'all remember how pissed you would be if you caught like 2 parts of a 3-parter and then you missed the 3rd part?
Yeah.
Oh, I
It's
would give
like,
up. I wouldn't
oh.
even try.
Crushing
Yeah.
feelings. Shout out to afternoon reruns, because that's really what saved my X-Men fanhood. Was they eventually, it gets out of the Saturday morning pool and starts getting into the like, we have enough episodes, to put this on Monday through Thursday or whatever.
Mhm.
Yep,
And
that's
that
what
was how I caught a lot of the episodes. They still were out of order. They still weren't consistent, but I pieced together the storylines from like, wait, I remember Cable was in this one. So this must have happened season 1. And that's how I figured it out.
See, it was hard for me to keep to fit X-Men reruns in my schedule because afternoons I had homework. I had Sonic the Hedgehog, the cartoon series, voiced by Jaleel White.
I
I
remember
had
that.
Batman the animated series, and then I had my Nickelodeon shows.
And you had to
literally.
choose. Like
Yeah.
this,
Yeah.
this is back
You
in the
had to
days where like
choose.
You didn't have multiple
different. There were
TVs
like
to
3 or
record.
4. There were 3 or 4 stations, right? One was always showing like Oprah, or like
Yeah.
Ricky, like Oprah, Ricky
Ricky
Lake or
Lake,
something.
yep.
Jimmy
And as I
June.
got older, that started appealing to me too. So I would miss cartoons because I'd be like, I don't know. I think
Let me see what Ricky
I
talking
think this dude might be in love with his gay best friend. Let me see what's going on over here. But the other part was like, yeah, you had to get down or lay down because it's like Batman's over here, X-Men's over here, Spider-Man's over here with the X-Men. Do I want to watch Justice League, Superman? Like, you got to make some choices. And them DC joints, when they came out, they were hitting and they had much better production and the schedule was right. Like, it was chronological for the most part.
Yep.
And so that hurt the X-Men too, which may also be why I don't remember finishing it. It's because I probably was watching all that other shit because I was being rewarded with that.
So the crazy thing about this and like the Batman animated series that this as well as Batman animated series, they both were greenlighted at the same time. So they both pretty much came out the same year. Obviously, different animation houses and such, and they're kind of they ran kind of concurrently, and they're both lauded as being like some of the best animated series that were ever made. Obviously, I would say Batman is probably the better one because Batman, like you said, right, was consistent and was very much serialized. But like these, like we lived in a great time for cartoons or animated hero.
And another thing I'd add to Batman and Superman, until you get to the Justice League, they had a lot of time, like bottle episodes, meaning if you watch this episode, it doesn't matter what order you watch it in.
Yes.
You can just watch it. It's just a story about Batman. It's 20 minutes. And the next episode is not like, oh, you missed what happened with Robin. But X-Men was the exact it was literally like, oh no, Gambit is a bad guy now. You should have watched last week. You just fucked up. You're gonna be confused for a while.
I think, Brandon will never cease to let us forget that he had cable growing up. So, so you're going to hear a lot about Nickelodeon
Not
and Disney.
Nickelodeon. Okay.
Yeah,
But for someone like me who like legit was like, oh, this is the Saturday routine. Eventually I started playing baseball. So I was like, like lost in the sauce, or I'd be like, Ma, I gotta, we didn't have the VCR and the recording app, at that moment.
Same.
But I would say that there's because I know we got to get into the animated series, but there is something about, for me, like my dad is a huge comic book nerd, and I'm not into comic books like that. But I remember him like prior to this, right? Being like, if you are in my dad's sort of like best, like, the world isn't all rainbows and butterflies. And he would like tell me stories like in X-Men this happened, right? And that was like always his example of just like, you're gonna experience prejudice in the world, or if you're gonna be an activist, you have to like protest in this way, like in X-Men. And it like just
he's like, when Charles Xavier disappears on his children for a while, that's what Daddy was doing. I was just getting my mind right.
Lessons will be learned from X-Men, whether you want to hear them or not.
Legit.
Look to Wolverine.
He'd be like, Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. were inspirations for Magneto and Professor X. Remember that? And I was like, okay. And so for me, it was just like, oh, now I have context to all this stuff. So like now as an adult, as watching X-Men 97 and really like I'm like, oh shit, is that where my like level of like even activism comes in? It's just like inspired by X-Men and like how I navigate in that space.
For a whole generation, I would say yes, because if you talk to people that like read a lot of X-Men and love the comic, they will tell you they got a lot of life lessons through like reading those
I'm
comics.
1,000% sure that is why I'm so progressive.
Yes.
Because I was just learning it in comic books, and unlike the white dudes who watched it, I was reading the words and paying attention. So like, I was like, damn, it seemed like they treating these people like the blacks, you know? And it's like, why can't that guy openly be a mutant? And that's how I learned about, coming out the closet and stuff. So like, absolutely, if there's one not complaint, but like one downside to the old X-Men is that it was so firmly for kids at a time where everyone was afraid of these topics. And so the new version being for adults and being so firmly like, oh no, this is an allegory about gayness. This is an allegory about race. That is so much better now than back then when like it was just a lot of like, well, he feels kind of sad. We're not saying why. He just feels sad, guys. Maybe you picked it up, maybe you didn't.
It was wild as like even in the live action X-Men, they were still talking about this. They were talking about how white dudes are toxic as hell. Because I still remember, and I'm like so excited that Deadpool and Wolverine's bringing this actor and character back. Pyro and X-Men 2. When he goes to Iceman's house, which he's essentially coming out to his family, right? Pyro looks at the picture of Iceman and his family, and he has the saltiest fucking face to the point where he's like, I'm just gonna burn everything to the ground now. Like, I remember seeing that in the theater being like, oh, these white boys can be dangerous. They feel like wronged in any way. Like, that's crazy.
He's like, wait, you had a family?
How dare you have a family? And Brandon, I'm sorry, not sorry, but I had cable too. I'm sorry. So
I know it's weird.
And for me, it was one of those things where I was only child. So my mom was like, if you watching this cable, I know you ain't outside getting into shit. So I had like the choices across the board, so I got to watch like the Nickelodeon shows, even the Cartoon Network, because people take for granted Cartoon Network used to be a premium channel. Like a lot of people don't even remember that. It used to be a premium channel, but now it's kind of thrown in the cable package.
And I did have cable eventually, but I just remember when network TV was network TV. It was appointment viewing. Like it wasn't like I'm sure there were shows on cable that people watch, but I ain't never come to school to talk about them shows. I'm talking about Martin. I'm talking about Cosby Show. Like you ain't have to go to channel 28 except to watch like Chicago Bulls games or something. Like we was watching what was on the network TV, and it's sad because streaming and cable actually killed those shows. And none of the network TV shows even have a cartoon block now for kids getting out of school. It's all reality shows and news.
Yeah, and trash. It's trash. It's trash.
Basically, yeah.
But what I'm hearing is that the streamers might be trying to bring some of that back. It's all reverting back to the old cable model.
I hope so.
Which is really weird. Because I think they're going to start doing, and actually Tati and I had this app where they would have 24/7 channels of like certain shows. I think that's what Disney Plus might be doing. They might do like 24/7 X-Men, which would be smart to go from literally seasons 1 of the original through X-Men 97, because that's days of content basically.
The truth is they should just kill all these streaming apps, but we don't have time to talk about
it's
that.
too many of them. People don't have infinite amount of money, and all y'all doing
that's not what I'm talking about. I'm just saying
if
they want people to go to the movies, they should kill the streaming apps.
Yes,
exactly,
for sure.
We have a Samsung TV, and they have a like very similar. We have all the streamers too, but like they have like the. Anyways, long story short, like there's times where I'm just like, oh, I just need background because I'm cooking or whatever. And there's before Disney Plus was actually like bold enough, or I guess they didn't have the rights yet. I believe that Netflix, you were able to stream like the original like animated series. And I remember like putting it on while I was like, cooking, cleaning, whatever. And then like to everybody's consensus where it was like out of order. I was like, wait, what? Why do I not remember this? And then I would like slowly inch, like I'd be like holding the mop while I'm like watching the episode, like, oh, that's what I missed. Okay. So I'm not entirely mad at the streaming because of
Right.
it, but I also think that, to everybody's chagrin of like the disservice it does to the actual industry. But we can climb that mountain another
Yeah,
day.
that'll be for
Yeah.
episode 800.
But that was the benefit of streaming, is that
Yeah.
now you have a place where it's in order. Because if not, you had to buy the DVD box cassette or VHS box set. And I mean, look, we might have had cable money. I ain't have my daddy. Can I get the VHS 5-season box set of X-Men? That was never on the Christmas list.
See, that's when I got the job at Showcase Cinemas, and I was just getting all the DVDs and stuff. I was just like, because I wasn't going on dates. I'm like, what am I going to spend that money on? Anyways, we're talking
Not
about
with that attitude.
Yeah.
we're talking about X-Men 97, which was created by Bo DeMayo, who has since been fired. The plus side is apparently he already got the work on the second season of this. They're actually in production right now, like putting it all together. So if he is the person that brought all this together and made it the quality, gave us the level of quality that we received, we're good for at least one more season. We're good for that.
Okay, that's great. Because all jokes aside, after watching the first season, even the first few episodes, I was like, "What did this nigga do?" I'm hearing about OnlyFans. I was like, "Nigga, people it's OnlyFans every day." I don't understand. Like, what is happening here?
Yeah, I don't know.
It's concerning.
The better the episodes get, the worse what he did becomes in my mind.
Oh no.
Well,
you know what I mean? Because it's too good.
Yeah. It's
so
super
with it
good.
being like, because they saw it before we saw it,
right?
So and they renewed season 2 before season 1 dropped,
Mm-hmm.
and then they said they're doing season 3,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they said they're keeping his ideas for season 2.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just feeling like this nigga killed babies. Like, what the fuck did he do? You kept all his work. Like, you clearly think he did great work.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know.
He's been quiet
scared.
too. Yeah,
right.
To your point, right? He's been quiet about. He's been commenting on the show and people's like, appreciation of it, but he hasn't been like, yeah. And they fired me for some bullshit saying that I was difficult to work with just because I told a white woman she don't know rogue.
And
like,
don't he seem like like his politics seem like the type where he got fired unjustly for some being outspoken. He would be like, and I'm gonna burn it to the ground. And with him just being like, well, no comment. But guys, did you notice the Easter egg in episode 7? I'm like, bruh, what you do?
Right. What did
you do?
Because they're over
we
here
ain't gonna talk about that.
Yeah.
Because they're over here working on the live action movie. And I'm like, at the very least, he could have gotten probably a producer credit on that, given how much like people see, like you understand these characters, right? So
a consultant, something.
Whatever he did, he messed up the bag. But
What did
this is
he do?
fantastic.
Yeah.
Let's talk about our favorite parts. Well, should we talk about like the things that maybe didn't quite click before we just like rant and rave about this amazing series? Should we talk about anything that didn't work or anything that we were like, we'll see how that pans out?
Okay, I'll start that off. Phoenix, when she popped up in which episode?
It's like the second to last episode, right?
Penultimate.
Yeah. When the Phoenix pops up and just fixes everything, it just saves them, and then just like, all right, y'all, I'm out of here. And then Jean's just like, she's gone now. I'm like, bitch, you better. I need more. I need more.
It was the season finale, by the way, when she is able to like destroy Bastion.
That's also such an X-Men as a comic book trope.
Yeah.
Of like the Phoenix is such a like catch all, like just when a writer runs out of ideas, just like have Jean Grey get possessed by the Phoenix, she fix everything, Phoenix can do anything, and we're done. And then eventually they always write the same loop of, but when she did that, it actually made her crazy. And this like every fucking time, dude.
I wasn't terribly upset with like the whole Phoenix thing because I think it made sense given like the amount of stress that Jean was under, right? So like she finds out that she was cloned and Scott was like banging somebody else and then they have a kid and the whole thing. So like that little tiny flame of Phoenix that's there and then they get their asses handed to them in the last 3 episodes and then Phoenix was like, I'm here,
Mhm.
I don't know if I hold that same thing, but I understand because a part of me was like, that's it. We just go wrap it up in a nice little bow. Okay.
Well, I mean, it did
Yeah.
not get wrapped up in a nice little bow, but at the same time, it's just the fact is like the Phoenix for X-Men is the ultimate ass pull. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
It's just like at any point, it's just like, man, I don't know how we're gonna end this episode. Where's the Phoenix?
That's
Superhero shit.
because it wasn't a lot. Because like it wasn't a lot of foreshadowing.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because sometimes people do stuff, but you're like, no. If you go back and watch episode 4, they brought it up. Episode 6, they brought it up, and then boom, episode 10. That's why she still could use it. This joint was just kind of like, yeah, y'all remember she did the Phoenix, right? And we're like, yeah, I do remember she did that. All right, cool. I'm like, all right, I accept it. That's fine.
She kept talking to Scott, was like, Scott, it keep pulling me, keep talking to me. Like, I gave up this for you.
I just feel like when it's like when they were making this series, they were just like, listen, this series cannot go if we don't have an appearance of the Phoenix.
Yeah.
And like so I just felt like it was kind of pigeonholed in there at some point. Like when it was her, she and Cable have that like kind of beam lock thing, and then she's talking to Scott. She's like, "Hey Scott, see you later." I was just like, here comes a Phoenix, because I'm just like, what's gonna happen here? So
Justin, they were against the world. The humans returning to the Sentinels. They gotta do something.
Yes,
Mm.
but did we necessarily need the Phoenix to just pop up out of nowhere and then immediately disappear? Because if the Phoenix is gonna pop up, you would think the Phoenix would be like, all right, y'all, let me clean some shit up. And
why would the Phoenix talk like that? Why would she talk like Bernie Mac? All right, y'all, we go.
That's my Phoenix.
Yeah, so I had interpreted it as because there is a quick line in a couple earlier episodes where, and this is where Jean is technically Madeline. So this is where I was like, ooh, maybe this was just like a red herring, maybe not. Like I've been thinking about it for a minute now. So they mentioned like the whole Phoenix thing, and then like Jean, aka Madeline, we didn't know it was Madeline at the time, was like, "Oh, I got it under control" or something like that. And then it like brushes by like so quick, and you're like, "Okay, I guess she got it under control." Like, and then we find out the whole Madeline thing and whatnot. So for me, it makes me wonder if Jean truly does have a control, and she's like, "All right, Phoenix, I'm losing this fight. You need to come out and get your girls back." And Phoenix like, all right, and gets a little Sandman on and does a little tap dance. And then it's like, all right, I'm off the stage.
Rod and Karen.
I mean, so that's also the White Phoenix, the one that came out.
Yeah, not the Dark Phoenix.
Yeah.
The Dark Phoenix is the one that sounds like Bernie Mac.
Yeah.
Oh, Bastion, I knew I was gonna see you again.
Rod and Karen, was there anything of the series, the season that you were like, I could have done without that, or like I wish they'd executed that better?
For me, I'm not gonna lie, I enjoyed everything.
Okay.
For me personally, and for what Justin was saying, I also do think the Phoenix is so powerful they couldn't have let it stay. I don't know if that makes sense. Like they had to be like, get out of here, beat it.
Yeah, I feel like that's why they took out Storm, because like there's certain characters that are so powerful, you're kind of like, you gotta take them out. Like what was it, Dungeons and Dragons? The dude from Bridgerton, apparently his character in the lore is incredibly powerful. Like he could like
Yeah.
destroy. He could beat everybody if he really wanted to.
So he just
That's
like
what-
walks away.
They just have him walk away.
Yeah. I was like, take this nigga with you to the third act. They were like,
Like,
nah,
no,
y'all don't want
he's
that.
just gonna slowly walk away from everybody.
In a straight line, remember they're like, oh,
Yeah.
like Chris Pine's like, oh, he's just never gonna, oh, he's just keeping walking in a straight
Right.
line. Okay,
That movie was slept on,
it was
man.
hilarious.
Yes,
right?
it was.
I heard it's getting a sequel though.
Let's
so
go.
I
hope
hope
so.
so. But Rob, what about
only
you?
thing I have for it that's somewhat negative is just pacing, and I think it's just a cartoon thing. Like
Agreed.
when you animate things, people really let go of the third, like the idea of like realism.
Mhm.
So like pacing for me wasn't like the action. It was always shit like Storm leaves and then she's in love with Forge 2 minutes later, and you're like,
Well, he
what?
made her a good ass meal, Rob.
right?
You know, he made
Like,
that. He made
how-
that stew.
what spices did this man use? You are a black woman from Africa. I know you don't have some good spices before.
He got the recipe from Thanos at the beginning of Endgame. When
Like,
he was
does that
making
leg-
stew.
Does that leg vibrate? Like, how you fall in love? You fell in love with this man awfully quick, ma'am. So, and it's just stuff like that. It's like I said, it's not necessarily a knock. I just think like if it was live action, you have to take so much time setting up stuff. It's like no character can fall in love in an episode. It's gotta be like episode 4, they fell in love. This joint is like, it's a love triangle right away. Madeline ain't even real. She dead. All right. The other love triangle with Remy and Magneto and Rogue.
It's like
It's
shit
boom, and he
rolling.
dead. That's over. Like
Mhm.
it's so fast with the pacing. You don't have time to think about the interpersonal workings of like build up and crescendo and fallout. Everything happens within like 5 minutes.
Yeah, they did kind of smash a lot into like 1 or 2 episodes, and like those arcs are for the most part 1 or a half of an episode.
Yeah.
Like fuck, and like
and
these
the
are
relationships
short.
are normally just a little part of it. Like, you know, when Jubilee and Sunspot go to his home and meet his parents and shit, and it's the whole allegory about coming out and all that stuff.
Mhm.
It's like he comes out, next thing you know, his mom's putting him in the Sentinel program.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
like no.
Then they break out, Storm saves them, and it's over. And you're just like, damn, that's about 7 minutes of actual screen time over 3 episodes. And it's just like that.
Yeah, Ali in the chat said the Jubilee episode, which is episode 4, she saw a future version of herself and her powers, but in the last battle didn't utilize any of them. So that was
So actually, and this actually, I wanted to mention this. So Ali, if you notice that in that the Mojo episode with Jubilee, where she did, like, you know, she sees her future powers and all that. If you notice in that episode when they're being chased by the Sentinels, she's actually trying to use her powers to fly, but she can't control it, so she falls. Because that's what a future Jubilee did. And then that hit that she hit Bastion with at the end, that was what her future Jubilee did. Because like now, if you're a Dragon Ball Z fan, you know that she was throwing destructo discs and shit like that.
Right.
You know, in the future, she did actually pull that out. So she, you know, so she tried to do it, but she doesn't have the full control of her power to be able to do the things that the future self can do.
Yeah.
yeah, she's still just shooting fireworks out her hands.
Well, she's still a
Yes.
teenager. She's still a teenager and in puberty. And I think that that's something, you know, Jubilee was never really like my favorite character. So it's just like, but it's like, and as an adult, I'm like, oh, well, it makes sense because she's still a teenager and still
Right.
growing and annoying and, you know, just all the things. I agree. I think like my biggest sort of pain point was I think they try to put too much into the amount of episodes that they had. And as much as we love a good triangle, right? I was like, there's too many love triangles happening. Like in a way that I was
Too
just
many.
like, I was like, oh, wait, we put that triangle and that triangle. Now we got a rhombus. Wait a minute. And it was like, it was wild. And then I was just
Yes.
like, but why do we care about this? Like, I just want to see
Yeah.
Magneto go full Magneto and fuck some shit up.
It was
because-
very
Yes,
soap
and-
opery. I think
Yeah.
I like it was funny and touching, but I also kind of low key rolled my eyes when like Wolverine's dying and morphs into Jean, who's
I
married to
love you,
Scott.
baby.
Well, I'm just like, okay, guys, we
everybody's like,
did a
Morph-
lot.
Yeah,
We
Morph
did a
revealed his
lot this
love.
season.
Yeah, it was a lot. And then Magneto with the sleeveless outfits, I was just like, yo, I'm like, this is wild, but I
Oh, it's
love
the
it.
horniest
Yeah, he
cartoon.
been doing the
Why?
workout. He's like, y'all gonna get these
This
arms.
cartoon is so horny
Yeah.
compared to the one we grew up with.
Yes, because
Oh,
it's
yeah.
made for
Is
us.
it
It's
very
made
horny?
for
Yes,
it's made for
very horny.
adults. Yes. They was like, we know y'all fuck, so we're gonna actually
I mean,
put it in
listen,
here.
Karen, it's not just made for adults, it's made for freaks.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, because Storm and Rogue brought back some old childhood memories of me being like, "Oh lordy, I definitely
Yeah.
like women." Like there's
Let me
like,
lock the door.
Justin and I were talking about it.
no.
We were like, the accent, the hair, like Rogue is a baddie. But for me, the two things that didn't rub me the wrong way, but just like I was like, man, I wish that had been handled differently. Both involve Xavier, and that's one, the reveal that he's still alive. I was like, I kind of rolled my eyes with that. I was like, of course he's still alive. Like, and for me, that kind of took away some of the stakes of the Gambit Magneto, supposed deaths at the end of episode what was it? 5. Where I'm like, okay, so I gotta really like they're probably not dead. Like it's gonna negate some of that, emotion I had at the end of that episode. But
Emmett dead.
Now we
Yeah,
did
but
now
they're
because this is probably because me and Brandon same thing. We don't remember the ending because we watched it out of order and it was a long time ago. But the supposedly the ending is Xavier going to the Shi'ar homeworld and never dying. So when we
okay.
come back in this one, they're just telling the world he's dead. But
Got
we
it.
as an audience are supposed to remember.
So that's on me. That's
I
on
only,
me for never watching.
I only
the
knew
rest.
this because I watched some recaps because I damn sure didn't go back and watch the first 5 seasons.
Well,
And that's the only reason I knew he was alive the whole time. But I'm with you in that if I would not have known that, it was like a weird anticlimactic way to bring it up because before we even see him, Bastion tells us like, oh, we got some like he alive. And it's like, the fuck is happening? How do you even get satellite footage all the way from out there? Like you got the good cable.
The real good cable.
You got that Brandon cable when he was a kid.
Oh yeah.
You got that Rick and Morty cable.
Oh my god, yo, real quick on I think it might still be on HBO Max. There's like they have those videos of like the fireplaces and stuff like that. They can play like romantic music. So they do that for Rick and Morty. And it's that crazy ass remember that episode where just different channels they have that in the background, just
interdimensional cable.
Hilarious.
Yeah,
just have random shit.
I watched that, man. It's so funny.
You can't. Anyways,
it is the best. I wanted to go back to what Tatiana was saying when she was talking about the episodes. I feel like the quickness of the episodes, I feel like it could be a good thing and a bad thing. It's a good thing because most people now have such short-term memory that if you drag shit on too long, people will complain about how it's long and boring. So if you watching something that's boring, 3 minutes later, we on to some other shit.
Yeah.
And so for me, that kind of worked with that boom, 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 boom. But I do understand that they may have needed to go into a little bit more details and drag something on a little bit longer, but I guess they had a goal that we wanted to be here by the time this episode ends versus giving them a few more episodes in the backside to kind of extend those stories.
Yeah.
Now,
So I think like one of the points of contention Brandon and I had was in the space of, so like I remember most of the animated series, so I knew this was a continuation pretty much like supposed to be like after that. And so for me, I was just like, we still on this Jean Grey and Scott thing, like we still doing this. Like, and I was just like, come on. And I was like, oh my God, like the kid sentiments and the adult sentiments are still aligning. Being like, I'm so over it. Yeah.
Do something different. That's why my other complaint was about Xavier. In the last episode, after Magneto's ripped Wolverine's skull out of his body, and Xavier's like, yo, I gotta get into his head. And he's basically telling him, like, they're going through like those flashbacks and stuff like that. And he's like, I might have to kill you if you don't get right. And I was like, there's a moment where I'm like, I would have taken back the morph, transforming into Jean Grey moment, any of the Jean Grey Scott Wolverine stuff, for
Mm.
these two to finally fucking kiss. Have the balls to do it. You're already hinting at it.
It was very
Like,
intimate, wasn't
Why
it?
not? At this
Yeah.
point, like, you may as well do that. Then you have an ultimate conflict where it's like, oh, they're both in love with each other. Now, what does this do? Like,
Men can't be platonic friends, Brandon. Wow.
Come on, man.
What's wrong with a man loving
haven't
and caring
fucked
about
on each
another
other for 10
man?
years.
You know? When are you and Justin gonna kiss?
Yeah, man.
Yeah. Get
I've
out
been trying
of
to
here,
do this for
man.
years.
Well, damn, get it on. But nah, I'm with you on like them trying to put so much relationshipy stuff in there. And like that is a huge trope in X-Men, all that stuff. What I thought they were gonna do, we didn't get, and maybe we'll get it next season, is there's eventually a time where like Scott and Jean are not a thing, and Scott and Emma Frost they become
Oh,
a thing.
yeah.
And the way they wrote the characters, it makes so much sense. Like soon as they link up, you like, now that's a couple. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
and so I do wonder if they'll do that, because there were some hints towards that in this season when they got Emma out of the rubble and stuff. So like, I'm kind of, and Emma's psychic, so she be knowing all the shit too. She already know that like he used to mess with Madeline and Jean came back and all that stuff. So like, it's some real. And it's very kinky, which is also why I think they might do it, because they was doing some psychic sex shit that was wild. So
Well, I mean, Magneto and Rogue were getting their freak on. They weren't even really touching each other. And I'm just
Yeah.
like, what kind of orgasms he giving her with that shit?
Oh.
She was like, sugar, I've been vibrating the stuff. Like the way
Remy ain't have a chance.
No, he did
I feel so
not.
bad for Magneto. She's like, I can't touch you, Remy. He's like, oh, God.
He's like, well, can I watch Sherry?
So all right, the one thing, so like, and I get, it's just like, hey, there's so much Cyclops and Jean, love drama, all that kind of stuff, and you got Wolverine kind of sitting in the corner, just jacking it, hoping that somebody gives him
Come
something.
on, don't do that to Wolverine. He
I mean,
didn't have
he
much
is.
to do in the series.
No,
He's not
but
just
no.
jacking in the corner.
No, but I mean, if you watch, the
It's a lot of
technically is. That's what he does. He's
And
Well,
then
he
Jean
does get-
kissed that nigga once.
She kissed him. She kissed him after, when she was, when she
Right.
came back. Scott's impregnated her clone and shit like that. They
Right.
got a weird ass
hold on.
baby that's in
Now,
space.
I'm just gonna say this. If anybody has followed the recent run of X-Men where Scott and Jean and Wolverine are living on the moon in that little compound, just know that they have conjoined bedrooms. So they probably all fucking, they're having threesomes.
I can imagine it.
Oh yeah, well, like
Yeah,
Rod said,
it's
this
not
is
even a
very
love
horny
triangle.
show.
It's just a triangle, baby.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing is like, they're all in tight quarters. They're constantly
Yeah.
like in these bodysuits. They're all fucking.
They never wear clothes.
Yeah.
Like Remy wears half shirts.
Yes, he does.
You know what I mean? Like
You gonna
Scott
get
showing his
all them
guns
6
now?
packs.
they
and them,
fucking for
and
sure.
them cum gutters. You gonna get them all.
Jesus
Oh,
Christ.
so, all right, let me just finish that thought.
I,
Really quick.
I looked at Rob and said, "Was that me? That was Karen."
My bad.
So, but like if you looking at the comics and everything, I mean, Scott is kind of one of the bigger characters in X-Men. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of this actually centers around him because the not Magneto, what you call it, Sinister, Xavier, they're all after Scott's genes because
the Summers, the Summers
Summers
gene.
are a huge thing within the X lore.
Yeah.
And there's a point which I think that they may be going in the second season where Scott becomes a villain, and
That's what I want.
Rob.
Like and like his thing wasn't even, I wouldn't even call him a villain. He just was like
Enough.
Magneto was right.
Mhm.
And I gave it a shot, bro. This shit don't work. And he just was like everyone's nemesis, but it wasn't like he was doing villainous things, but he wasn't a villain, if you know what I'm saying. It was a lot of like him being like, no, the president must die. Sorry. Bye.
I mean, when they destroy Genosha, and then they all came after, the government comes after the X-Men, stuff like that, and then Magneto's just like, okay, when he like took the whole power grid out, Tati was like,
Yo.
yo. She was like,
Yes.
did he just do that? I was like,
Yes.
you
Well,
gotta scare people and show them how powerful you really are.
Oh, no,
So
he didn't
I
take the power grid out.
no, Brandon, I tell you this all the time. He didn't take the power grid out. He like shut down the like magnetic like
Poles. Yeah.
like poles. That's why they were like, if we don't get him to undo it, like everything on Earth is dead.
Yeah, he's gonna destroy the world.
He's
Yeah.
like,
Like we're gonna float into the sun.
Yep. Because they said, I forget what it was, but it's
And
something
niggas were worried
like
about
without
Superman.
the poles, eventually like something like the ozone leaves or some
mhm.
shit, and then you just fry to death from the sun. Like this nigga gave no fucks. He was finna be on his little asteroid.
Well, at that point, they're
living.
killing people. Like Rogue pushed that dude out the window. She was like, I don't give a fuck, sugar.
Yeah.
Um,
Everybody watched too.
Gambit got. I mean, after Gambit got, everything was just out
Matter
the
of fact,
window.
multiple people could have saved him.
Yeah, and
Like,
they did not.
Jean was there, she didn't catch up with her
True.
mind. Nightcrawler was there, he didn't teleport. Like everyone was
They,
just like,
they was tired of
everybody was like, you gotta do. Sometimes you gotta kill a
I'm
motherfucker.
tired of mutant racism. I guess one gotta go.
No, there's like, I'm always the anti-hero like cheerleader. I'm like, but they're not wrong. The logic isn't flawed, right? And if you keep pushing people, they're, you don't knock if you can't buck back. It's just like how it is. I was like, so Magneto been warning motherfuckers, like, don't push me because I am close to the edge. And they pushed him and he was like, now y'all want to act surprised? Come on. He
What
was
was
like,
the
I-
line?
he's like, I've been that dude. He was like, I've been that
Yes.
dude, and I'm not even the most powerful one. He was like, and
Mhm.
look at what I did.
Yeah, because Bastion had him held up like Mr. Incredible with his arms out.
Yeah,
It was
with just his drawers on.
I was like, Bastion fucking them, right?
Right? He was shaving this nigga. I felt like Being Rames in Pulp Fiction.
Dancing and shit. I was like, what is happening here?
Hey, what are you
The
doing,
dude
brother?
with the gimp outfit came out.
Right. Motherfucker came out there stuck in the middle with you.
So, what was that line that Magneto gave the UN in
Don't
the second episode?
Make me
Let you down. I
Yeah.
never forget that line.
He,
I mean,
he
I guess
gave
we
them-
on to the positives because one of them was the writing.
Yeah.
The writing was excellent.
God damn,
ban-
I'm not
gotta
a
ban
jealous
those-
person at all, but like that's a writing dream job. That what they got to do with those characters,
Mhm.
some of those lines I'll remember for the rest of my life.
Shout out to Darren
Mac-
Patterson. He wrote that up you in our Patreon. It's the first one was, do not make me let you down.
Yes,
Gods abandon those that believe in them. Mutants do not.
yes.
You gave a monster a trial. Now you were traitors to your kind. Oh, to play by the rules, and still they come for you. Like
and
he was wild.
and the joint where he said when he talked about watching Leech's eyes melt from his
Yeah,
skull.
Boyle.
Nigga. And then the joint where he said, they were like, "Oh, you got let terrorists become like the leader of the nation." He's like, "Most of your nations basically let their leaders become terrorists," and I was like, "Oh,
yes.
the bars they wrote for this man are so beautiful and so succinct and so powerful." And they nailed it with many characters, like, and you can do that with animation where something can be corny and it's okay. Like when Storm with Storm and Jean share that moment right before the final fight where she's like, "Mind your weather," and she was like, "And make them weather your mind," or some shit. And I was like, I love so much of this whole thing because of that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So- Go ahead, Karen.
In the writing, I remember when Xavier was with the Shiara and the sister showed up and was like, "Yo, ghetto Milky Way." I was like, well, good.
Yo,
Or you know what?
Even
Even no, go ahead, Tati.
No, so I'm sorry. One of the things I actually appreciated was the writing too, because I was like, every day I was like, snap, snap, snaps, right? But it's like saying the quiet part out loud,
Yes.
which is very much like where we are, I think, as adults, right? Like we're at that age where we're not holding back. Like we pay our taxes, we do what we gotta do. you gonna hear
You.
you gonna hear what we
Yes.
gotta say. Like we know shit is fucked up. And I also think too, because the state that the world is in, particularly this country,
Mm.
we're very like keen to it as well. But ooh, I forget that there was one line where I was like, that was written by a black person. If I ever
Mm.
heard a line, and I'm like trying to
Bo
pull it,
DeMayo wrote a lot of these
I was
episodes, or
trying to
co-wrote them.
Yeah,
pull like the
there was
Rogue.
one time where they point out that Rogue's like the only black person at the Xavier school, and it was just like a throwaway line in the middle or something. Like it was like I don't forget what the line is. This is not what it was. It was much better than this, but it was like on some like
Storm.
yeah Storm. I'm sorry, what did I say?
You said Rogue.
I meant Storm.
But
Yeah,
we'll accept Rogue too.
she's the
Yeah,
only
but
she's
yeah,
the only
she had the
Southern
bar-
woman in
She had the
the
barbecue for sure.
Yeah.
Getting on the baked
Cookout.
beans.
She getting a plate.
yeah. Okay, she
Yeah,
gonna give you the
and sauce
sugar
stuff,
with
that.
her
Oh.
iced tea.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, my point being like they made a line about Storm being the only black person there, and it was just so like subtle, but like, as Tatiana said out loud, directly at the point where you're like, yeah, I love the X-Men. I've always thought about that. She's like the only nigga there. What's up with that? So I loved it.
Bishop had to come from the future.
Right, and he left.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He got
Forge is
lost on
over
his
here a
way.
traitor.
And he
Forge is
should
a
have fucked
traitor.
up and he
making the
leave
machines.
here and go back.
Yeah, and he was a coon when he first got here.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he was.
Like he was locking up the X-Men. I was like, bro, what you doing?
I mean,
Do you not know whose side to be on? What are you doing?
I mean, a lot of people come from the future. They're all fucked up. When Cable came in, he was like, "I know you're my daddy, but I hate you. I hate
Yeah.
everything. I'm trying to save the
Like-
world, but I fail all the time." Yo,
Bishop
Bastion-
was a cop who locked up mutants in the future.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
things that went hard. I was like, that's like sending Jason Whitlock back to the 70s to save MLK.
Yo, when Bastion didn't Bastion say something to Cable like, "You came back from the future, you still failed." Like,
Yeah.
he's like,
Damn.
"What are you doing?"
Wait, no, he's like, how many times did you come back?
Yeah.
250?
By the
Couldn't
way,
be me.
By the way, shout out to Theo James, who I had clowned on as an actor for a long time because of those Divergent movies. And he did, I think, the Underworld movies. I was just kind of like, this dude is corny. Between this and White Lotus, I'm like, oh, his people did the right thing. Like they got him set up because he did a great voice performance as Bastion.
Yeah.
Like I like the
Yes.
whole villain arc. I thought that, showing the flashbacks of him as a kid and he turned his mom into a sentinel. I was like, yo, the whole town. He turned his whole hometown into that shit. That was a great twist. I love that shit.
So
Mhm.
I want to also just point something out. Now, first of all, this take I actually got from Screen Crush, so I want to give them their credit because but episode 4, that Mojo episode with Jubilee and shit. Now, first of all, like watching that, I'm just like, all right, this is cool. Jubilee has her own little thing, and she gets to see herself from the future and whatnot. Like, all right. But I'm like, all right, what is this leading to? But that, obviously leads right into episode 5, which is, remember it, right? So it was a really good setup it's like, hey guys, I know we all like to stay, we wish that we just knew everything and we knowing how everything's going to go is great. And it feels comfortable. It's just like, but shit has to change and you're gonna have to grow up and just embrace change, because the next episode it's just like, yeah, Gambit dies, Genosha gets
Is he
destroyed.
really dead?
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah.
He
God
dead.
damn it.
He's
Yeah.
gonna
was
get
so
brought back though. He's
Yeah,
gonna
it's
get
like
brought back.
Yeah.
I got a feeling he is.
The
There's like a-
4 horsemen of the apocalypse.
Oh yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. Yeah, because they find his card at the end, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
Apocalypse does,
it
right?
seemed like Apocalypse was clearly alluding to like bringing him back to life.
Okay, that was a brutal death scene, by the way. Like,
Bruh.
I mean, that whole
which
fight
one
scene
was it?
incredible.
Yeah,
Yeah,
everybody
true.
was taking the L.
Damn, them death scenes hurt, boy.
That
Genosha hurt.
Magneto, when the little mutant was looking up at him, and
Fam,
he was
Leech.
like, we're gonna be okay. And they seemingly died. I was just like,
He said, didn't he say that German shit too? Like, Hive Keen Hongst. I was like, what do this mean? It's so sad.
Yeah, good.
Do not be
Genosha
afraid of
was
shit like that.
fucking
Yeah.
wild. That was yeah.
Oh, God
That was a brutal
damn.
episode, and I think that's something. If the Emmys are on point, if the Emmys actually give a fuck, they would nominate that episode for writing, for directing. Like that
Yeah.
had some of the best anime I'd seen in years. And that,
Mhm.
I mean, the Nightcrawler Wolverine fight scene was really
Oh
dope
my
too.
God.
But the Gambit Magneto taking it to the Sentinels, I was like, this is
Yes.
incredible. This is the
Yes.
incredible animation.
And that was the episode for me that really showed that this is where they're modernizing the animation because it had anime feel to it. And
Mhm.
that's when it started blending. Because after that episode, all of the fight scenes have that very like anime style afterward. And I
Yeah.
was like, and then you can tell like the difference in the animation. Like their everyday movements look a little bit different. And I was just like, oh, so
Yeah.
either I was like, and I want to believe it was intentional, right? So
Mm.
to Justin's point of being like things are gonna change and y'all just gotta sorry, was it Justin who said that? Or Rod? I forget.
Yeah.
No, it was Justin. Yeah.
It was Justin.
Justin.
I apologize. But like legitimately just like things are going to change and then every episode after that the animation was different.
Yeah.
Like the writing hit harder, like the like you saw each fighting scene just got gorier and like the
Yeah.
things that were happening were just going. And so for me that episode was the catalyst for the visual representation because prior to that everything still looked very old school, just like
Mhm.
everybody's kind of like running like this and
Mhm.
but anyways, and the fighting was so good, like to the
I
point
think
where
I
I
do
was like, why would we need a live action? I'm okay if they only keep this in the
same.
animated space.
And I do think like from episode one, there was like I think it was intentional because like
Mhm.
there's moments in episode one, like the Cyclops animation from when he fought the Brotherhood of Mutants and the way that went viral. Cause all of us that are Cyclops fans from the
yeah,
comic
yeah.
books that never liked the animated portrayal of him were like, that's the nigga that's what he could do that.
Yep.
Like this,
Yeah.
he's not just always being like Gene. I'm so sad. He actually will kick people's ass.
Which is wild. Yeah. James Marsden's the actor that could have pulled that off, but they just never
Absolutely.
gave him anything.
Yeah.
And
They,
but and
went the
another
whole Green
thing
Star.
another thing that's crucial in that is that this staff really did the research on the power levels of mutants. So like Scott's not an omega level mutant, even though his genes are like the most coveted genes to all the geneticists, villains, and shit. But like he's like, I think maybe alpha level, and omega, we might even be below that. And like omega level is like Storm, Magneto, Jean. The way that you could tell when they did like a power, like Storm's about to show out, it it made the Scott shit look weak. Like that's how good it was. Like, because when it starts off, you're like, yo, they wasn't doing Scott like this before. And then Storm has her moment, and you're like, oh no, nah, nigga, this is power. This is what power looks. It's cool. Your shit was cute, but this is good.
Yo, I think the scene that best just shows that is I think it's in the first. It's in the first episode when they land down. They're going after that base. You know what I'm saying? And they're in the desert. And they're out there fighting. Master Mold is out there and shit like that. It's just like Storm, and Storm is just walking around in the desert somewhere, and she's just talking. She's like, "Let the rain." I'm like, "Oh, this bitch is about to go in."
Right.
He just rains down destruction. I was
Yes.
like, "Yeah,
Like lightning is hitting sentinels and shit. Like she's just that.
not playing games."
Those moments to me are what truly, like Tatiana said, that was when I felt like the difference even in the animation style was because as you get progressively stronger mutants, bigger threats, the fights get bloodier and the mutants' powers get better. And it felt like the second half of that season was a different
Yeah.
level of power and art than the
Yeah.
first half, first 3 or 4 episodes because of just the power levels.
It was just no holds barred. They had to let loose. So actually, this is something that I did not know until this series came out, and then just doing, just looking into things that Gambit is apparently an Omega level mutant.
I
But
believe it. He's wearing like white pants and
No.
like I got some cards and he's going against robots. Like,
Yeah,
he's,
With
absolutely.
no problem.
no,
yeah, he
but
didn't hesitate at all.
Sinister actually suppressed his powers, so he's no
Mhm.
longer an Omega level mutant.
Mm.
I did not know that. But like
Well,
this,
also, this is so nerdy, but as a reader of like the Gamut comic book, back when that had a run, he eventually gets to the point where he can control like the kinetics of like everything, even living people and shit. And he even makes it so that he can touch Rogue. Like that's how
Oh,
much
wow.
control he has over the kinetic powers and shit. And like he ends up becoming like an Omega level threat. Like there's another version of him that's a villain that has like these crazy time warp powers and all this shit. And it was just like, no, this is what his powers are turned up to the like nth level. We just never got to see that version of him. So yeah, he's dope. Iceman is another one that I don't even
I've
think
always
he's
been a big
in
fan
this
of
series,
Iceman.
but this
No.
nigga at some
Not yet.
point, I remember when he alphaed out, he had his like what they call it like secondary evolution or whatever.
Yeah.
And this nigga got to the point where like motherfuckers could shoot a hole through him. And he just turned like he just come back. And he could also live with the hole in him forever. And then the one day he had this is how he found out he had the powers. He had to change back. And he thought, well, I guess I'm gonna die. Cause I'm fucking
Yeah.
I got a big ass hole in me and I'm full of ice. And then he just healed and he was like, nigga, I can't die. Like it's so like, yeah, I wonder if we'll get some of that stuff because
We
they did
probably
hint
will.
towards secondary evolution when they
Yeah.
showed Emma turn to diamond,
Yep.
which I want to see everybody get one now.
I mean, we probably will. We'll probably get like these really, like these great demonstrations of how powerful these mutants will be because we got Apocalypse coming in the second season, and then we have the fallout from Xavier leaving, a marriage that he had in space, and like the animosity that's going to create towards Earth, right? So we have those threats. So that, and then also Sinister is still out there, like he still could come back or
I
whatever.
mean, and humans are still trash.
Yeah, so
They're still trying
Yeah.
to take it.
there's so many things that like are
And we might get
set up for success.
Onslaught. I don't know how much y'all know about Onslaught,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
like in the comic books, that's the next big villain that comes
Oh, yeah?
after Xavier does that shit to Magneto. There's
Mhm.
like basically like a psychic super villain that is created because of them. That is it's like Xavier's worst part and Magneto's worst parts.
Oh snap!
And it takes corporeal form so that it's like a physical threat. And I still remember collecting the Onslaught. That was like one of my first big crossovers. And I remember collecting those books and being like, nigga, you can't beat this. Like every issue was just like a different team of people being like, so this how we gonna take them down. And at the end, he just whoops their ass. And you like, so did y'all write yourselves into a hole? This motherfucker is unbeatable.
It's like when they had the Green Ranger. He was so bad they had to make him like a good guy. They're like, you know what? You just be friends with them. Like, you
Yeah,
gotta stop
we
whipping their
we-
ass every afternoon.
we're tired of fighting and beating you up. And speaking on animation, I love anime. So when they did things that they do in animation, particularly in Genosha, they showed speed really, really well.
Yeah.
Which is something that good animes do.
Yep.
Particularly with Rogue, when she got mad and she was like, woof, I was like, oh yeah, let's go. So I'm really ready to see what they do in the next episode as people get stronger and faster and quicker and all that stuff. Are we gonna have like not the same, but like your Dragon Ball Z moments, where it's like, oh my gosh, what is happening? Where it's hard for people to follow them and things like that. Like I'm really excited to see like what they do with the animation and how well it's drawn.
Yeah, for sure.
So I just want to do something really quick. I want to go down each episode, and I'm just gonna. So obviously, if you're on the IMDb, the episodes are ranked, going down. So episode 1, To Me, My X-Men, that was ranked at 8.3 out of 10. Right. Episode 2, Mutant Liberation Begins. That's when basically find out Magneto was the dude taking over and the UN thing happens. 9.1. Then we move over to Fire Made Flesh. So that's when you find out Gene and all that bullshit happens. 8.5.
So much. That was only episode 3. Like, holy shit.
So episode 4, Motendo, Life Death, the Jubilee thing, 7.1. Then episode 5, Remember It, as we all know, R.I.P. Gambit, 9.7. Then we move over to Life Death, part 2. So this is where the second part where, Xavier's out in space, he's coming back, all that business, 7.9. Episode 7, Bright Eyes, where basically Rogue loses her shit and she starts showing business to the world, 8.7. Then we move over to episode 8, Tolerance is Extinction, part 1. This is a 9.3. Then episode 9, Tolerance is Extinction, part 2. That's a 9.4. And then episode 10, Tolerance is Extinction, part 3. The crescendo of all of this is a 9.4. These ratings, this show was on some next level shit.
The lowest was 7.7. That's crazy.
Was a 7.1, and that was for episode 4. That was Motendo, and then the Life Death. So that's when we found out
The Forge.
Right.
Adversaries.
So
That's crazy.
And I feel like that's an underrated episode because it is a strong transition into what's coming. And then obviously the next one is a 7.9. That's all Charles in space.
Yeah.
I feel like that one should probably be the 7.1. But
see, what I liked about that one,
Sorry.
what I liked about that one specifically was how they mirrored his story and Storm's story.
Yeah.
And the theme of both stories was the same, which is you're the only one holding yourself back. Go reclaim your power. And it was like, damn, they figured out a way to make those themes match. Because to me, those stories are so different from each other. But at the end, it was like, nah, that you gotta step up and be a baddie again. You gotta what you doing? You just sitting over here chilling? Nah, we not doing that. Come back. And man, the end of that was what really like hit for me. Especially Charles, because Charles is such a powerful mutant. And he never really I was so mad when they showed him up there chilling. And I was like, fam, what you doing?
And then he's like, my children, they were having fun and making love.
Right.
And now they're all dead.
Right. And it was and like, cause I have a very love-hate relationship with Charles Xavier from years of reading the comics. And it's mostly hate. And I was like, just like you. It's just like you to be your ass up there in the good AC in another galaxy. They keeping slaves in the back, Charles. Those people with the horse head are not working willingly, and your ass is up there eating grapes and walking.
Did you feel like it was a parable on Obama now? Where Obama's like parasailing and like living his best life, and niggas like, it's died.
It's Obama now. If Obama could have served a third term, like at least he got the excuse of I literally can't come back and help you niggas. You didn't like me, and I'm out.
True.
This nigga is not an elected official. Come home.
Come back
Or
anytime.
he didn't need to leave. That's the thing. Like
Yeah.
you knew these
hold
motherfuckers
on.
was gonna be suffering, and you were like,
He doesn't deserve a vacation. He
Hold
don't
on,
deserve
hold
a
on.
foot rub, y'all. Come on now.
Hold on. Let me time out 1 second because we do have to give him a little bit of credit. He was in a coma, and chick from the Shi'ar Empire was just like,
Had the healing medicine,
yeah, we're gonna take him to
but
space.
then he didn't come back, Justin.
Right.
No, he had a year up there sitting there banging that alien pussy.
He ain't call. He ain't right.
Nothing. It was zero, nothing. And I think the thing about that episode that killed me, it took him not having his legs to be like, I'm the strongest motherfucker in the room. You always was the strongest motherfucker in the room. Why did it take you being on the ground looking up? There was like, oh yeah, I could use my
This
mind.
man got some avian cheeks and turned his back on the entire fucking race.
Yep.
And was sitting up there like, oh, I guess they don't know. And I was so happy when he put them in them classroom seats and
That was so
educated them
crazy.
on what sort of imperialistic bullshit they were on. And I was like, you should have did that day one. What are you doing? I'm sorry.
Like, oh, we're gonna take his powers away. Fuck that.
Right? Yeah.
Stop it.
So
You ain't
Are we
taking
ever bring-
shit away from me. I
Right,
hate
what?
you.
When they was like, so you really want to go back to your planet? He should just been like, take me home. And everybody's like, go get the keys.
The reason why I brought up the parable with Obama is because the first episode, you know, with like the MAGA-esque like dudes with the guns that shoot the things that take away your powers and stuff like that, or they've been torturing mutants and shit like that. That's what it gave me a vibe of. So that's why I was like, you know, sometimes our heroes let us down. Xavier is notorious for doing
It's
that too.
definitely like how people feel about Obama. I'll put it that way. I just don't think this shit the nigga could do.
yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
hold on.
Like these racist people is racist because he was president. If
yeah, exactly.
he come back, can you stop being racist? Like, shut up, nigga. Like it's not
Imagine
gonna
Obama
work.
Just
Mm-mm.
imagine Obama like did a speech where he just does this with his head.
Bro.
He's gone crazy. But
If
he's
he
like,
made, if he
he's got
touched his
migraine.
head and made us all sit in seats and learn about racism, I would actually co-sign that.
Yeah, but
How do-
it's funny because people talk about Obama. Obama should come back, and it was like, yeah, Obama will be back only long enough to catch a bullet. They're like,
Yeah,
let's
it's
just be
over
honest.
for that.
Forbid,
He
God
needs to just
forbid.
step away.
We all when he made it through the whole 8 years went,
Yeah, I was just afraid he don't get shot the whole time.
I don't need no overtime.
That's why they keep talking about Michelle. I'm like, if y'all don't keep that
Michelle-
woman's name out your mouth.
Michelle wouldn't let him do overtime. I'm okay with it. It's time for him to move on. It's time for us to take a stand.
Speaking of moving on and taking a stand, before you know, we're about to wrap up our thoughts on the series. But Tati, you wanted to say something real quick?
Yeah, how do we feel on the MCU integrations now? Because there was a Spider-Man cameo, there was a Hulk, morph situation.
Mm-hmm.
I know what I think, but I'm
mean,
just
it's
trying to get
clearly
a
not-
consensus.
This is going to be connected to at least our MCU. Justin,
Right.
I think, has theorized that this could be the world that what's her name ended up in at the end of the Marvels. That this could be that X-Men, but I don't think so. I think there's just too much going on in this. I think it'd be hard to convince viewers, like regular viewers, like how this is incorporated in live action stuff. I think that'd just be too much.
So,
for people.
so this
I
is
agree.
the thing. So in that last episode, our prologue and everything, where they get shot over into the past and and the future at the same time, right? When they come across Apocalypse, the first mutant, basically Dracula of mutants. If they see that city in the background, you know whose city that is, though, right?
Kang.
Exactly.
Oh, that's King the Conqueror city?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
like Apocalypse
Oh.
first. Like one of his origin stories is Kang was like, I'm finna kill this nigga.
Going after
So they could use Kang to bring it in. I think honestly, I think if they're smart, they leave it disconnected from the live action stuff. Just in addition to it being confusing, it's also one of the issues Disney was having, which was so much of the stuff felt like prerequisites. Like, oh, I can't go see the Marvels because I haven't seen Mrs. Marvel and I haven't seen Secret Invasion. So will I? And once people start asking questions like that, it makes them less likely to see the movie than more likely to see the movie. You know what I'm saying? Like, what's more likely? I'm gonna watch 13 episodes of a TV show so I can go see your movie, or that I end up skipping the movie. So I think they'll probably try to have less of those tie-ins going forward. I think that's also why they're turning some of the TV series into movies. So you may get an Armor Wars movie now instead of Armor Wars the series.
I don't
Because
think we're gonna get that after they messed up the whole Secret Invasion. Like,
I hope you're right. I honestly hope you're right.
That.
But I heard the last thing I heard about it was it would be a movie and not a TV show.
Yeah.
So which is even if they never do it, it's a better thing than trying to do a TV show. So I hope they don't connect it. And then the cameos with the Avengers and stuff, the reason I think they're in there is because during that Onslaught crossover, he fights all the motherfuckers and whoop all they ass.
Yeah.
They was bringing in, it wasn't just an X-Men crossover. They was bringing in niggas from off the bench like Avengers, we need some help. And then he'd be like, I'm gonna whoop their ass too. And well, the Hulk, I remember the Hulk got the closest because the Hulk superpower is he could just keep getting mad and getting stronger, and he whooped the Hulk's ass. I was like, I don't even know what the fuck. You can't beat this man. So I think maybe that's why they'll be in there, and they won't be a huge part of seasons going forward, but just something that like they were to this time to like let you know the stakes have risen when Rogue throws Captain America's shield into a mountain.
Yeah.
Real quick to add to Rod's thing about the villain and like the Hulk in his ass beat. I think that's something that the MCU. This is where I feel like Endgame should have like put a pause to everything, right?
Mhm.
And I don't want us to go down too far this MCU rabbit hole, but the introduction of Thanos to show him fucking up the Hulk at the first 5 minutes of Infinity War. If you don't know anything about that character, you're like immediately like, oh, he can fuck up the Hulk, and you already know like this is a dude that's going to be hard for the Avengers to beat. Yeah. And I think that's where they messed up with Kang. And I feel like it would be a disservice right now to the live action to incorporate this into the live action MCU, just because Bastion and Mr. Sinister are already more formidable villains, not even including Magneto, than anything the MCU's shown us the past few years in regards to villains they have on the table. So
Well, I don't know if there's it's like an inclusion into like the live action space, but I do see it very much as being, because we know we're getting multiple iterations of Kang now, right? So it's just like I think this is just one of those like multiverse moments that they're gonna chalk it up to, which is why when you're like asking, is Gambit really dead? I'm like, at this rate, we already know we can bring Gambit from another timeline. We can move forward, we can move back, we're moving sideways.
well, I'm
So like asking those questions now in this stage of the MCU doesn't actually make sense, because we're like, there's so much that's like up in the air, that's like they can go anywhere with it. And especially because in Miss Marvel they actually talk about her having a mutation. So I'm like, for them to even say the word, and then now in this cartoon we have this introduction of, not introduction, but we have this inclusion of the Avengers where they weren't including X-Men in What If. And that was animated, and they could have easily just dropped a Wolverine somewhere, and they chose not to. So that's where for me, I'm like, I think that's where they might go with it, where they can keep this completely separate. But if they so choose at any point to loop them in, they can.
Well, Gambit is and I don't want to bet anybody on this, but I have a feeling that Channing Tatum's finally going to show up as Gambit in Deadpool versus Wolverine, and he's going to try to do a Cajun accent. And if he's in that, I guarantee Ryan Reynolds is going to do a joke about that was going to be the accent you're going to use, because I'm sure Channing Tatum do a Cajun accent was going to be fucking nuts.
Yes, I would love to see that. I hope you're right, Randy.
But Justin, break down our rating system, baby, for our 700th episode.
Yeah, our 70th episode, Brandon.
Listen, I don't do numbers. You don't do
Words.
Okay.
I think you just didn't do both.
Yeah, I mean, thank you.
Ryan never look at me the same since he did Drum Black History, and I combined Mississippi with Missouri. Missouri. And he was like, "Did you combine two Southern states?" I'm like, I don't
Wait,
know.
but Brandon, Rod was on the reading of that script.
Yeah, that was nice. That was fun.
Oh, yeah, he was
The
part of the
script you wrote in high
wasn't he?
school.
There's so many reasons why people will not look at you the same way.
Yeah, honestly, I'm back to looking at you the same, because that's how many times I've looked at you not the same. And I've started over.
So you guys don't know how we do this. We rate movies, bags of popcorn, small, medium, large, and the XL for the exceptional. If a film does not deserve any fresh, buttery popcorn, we throw it into the stale popcorn pile. We pile piles and piles of stale popcorn on top of it. So we sat down and we watched the entirety of X-Men 97, the reboot. Well, not the reboot, the continuation of the original animated series from the 90s that we all loved or just dealt with at the time. So Rod, Karen, what say you?
I give this one a large. I had a ball. I had a blast.
Large is the biggest, or the
No, that's the
So,
next to the
okay.
next to the biggest. The thing is, for me to actually give it like a extra lot. Like they would have to be completed with the series, so I could like see everything. But for this particular piece right here, not counting the old one, that's what it is for me. I enjoyed it. I had a ball. I had a blast. I love it way it was written, the way it was drawn. And I'm looking forward to what they do next and what storylines they cover next.
For me, I give it the largest double XL, whatever it is. Sneaking in a bucket of popcorn. I love it. Yeah. You got a purse full of popcorn that you're dumping on top of your popcorn. But yeah, I loved it. I thought it was great. And I also give it an added bonus of making people that say words like woke and DEI upset. Because it was like that's what I always thought the X-Men were when I read them.
Right.
And it never quite made it to that when we got live action versions or when we got the original cartoon. This is the first time that it felt like the comic book where it was explicitly like, no, we are on the side of blank and just insert everything I believe in blank. That felt great. And so yeah, I give it the largest.
Yeah. I'm gonna give it an XL. And you know me, I'm always doing something extra. So we're gonna add some peanut M&Ms on top of it. And a raspberry cherry slush.
That's not how our ratings work.
That's
You can't
how
just go
Tati
roll.
rolls. That's
Yes.
how Tati rolls.
See, this is why we can't have Tati on all the time, everybody, because she be going low with her ratings. We said
I love that she
popcorn.
went third person on you.
She had a dessert on it.
This is not new. They know that I do this sometimes for the things that I love because it made me excited to watch this. We specifically, wanted the nostalgia factor of watching it on a Saturday morning. The Saturdays where we couldn't, I was like, oh, we got to make sure we catch up on 2 episodes next week, right? So there was that. I mean, all of the things. I think, Rod, you just hit the nail on the head with it being like everything we know X-Men to be in the comics was like finally on the screen. So like, yes to all the things, yes to all the like homoerotic numbers and the costume changes and all of the just connections to different marginalized communities in all the ways, but also because it is a timepiece, right? It's supposed to take place in 97, but it still had that modernization of what's happening now. So when you had those protesters looking like MAGA folks, we were like, we know what that is. That's a 2020 something, that's not a 1997 thing. So I think it was just super clever and really excited for the next season and what they do. And I'm pretty sure for Halloween we're gonna see a bunch of rogues, a bunch of storms, and I love to see a storm in a black outfit. So I'm ready for all of it.
What's so wild about what you said and everything you liked about X-Men and it's like a lot of the stuff that like the supposed people are like, oh, it's too woke now, like X-Men, stuff like that. But those are the same motherfuckers that like the boys, which the boys is so
which is the
obvious,
same.
which it's hilarious because it's predominantly white people. They're still saying the same shit. The creators are like, yeah, we are laughing at their faces, but for some reason they keep watching our shit and liking it. It's wild. They don't get the joke. But I too give this an XO. I love this series. I think even if we never got any more because of things that went down with Bo, like I would be very, very happy with this addition to the 97 series. I almost don't want to go back and watch the originals because I feel like it's going to, I don't know. I would love to hear someone else's
you're right.
opinion about
You're
it
right. They also wrote them with different standards because it wasn't on streaming. And they had to deal with the comic book standards at the time. So like the action is way different. Wolverine like never uses claws.
And I feel like they were holding their punches probably a little bit.
Yeah, and Storm's like always passing out instead of like zapping niggas. Like it's a lot of weird stuff where they just nerfed everything for kids.
Yeah, but I love the voice acting. The animation was incredible, and it brought back my childhood crushes of Storm and Rogue. Like I had forgotten about Rogue. Like, and then I saw that hair and I heard that voice, and I was like, sweet mother lord, I need an apple pie in a closet and just my phone because we can watch things on our phones now. That's all I need. But XL,
Apple pie.
Justin,
Now I'm
what's-
looking at you different again. I'm not looking at you the same.
That's
I'm
what I was-
looking at him different. I'm married to him, and I'm high.
Fire
Justin,
the
what's your
closet
rating?
with your phone.
So so for me,
That was so specific. I'm sorry.
there's, there's not many shows or just properties these days that I'm so excited to watch to the point where it's like, oh yeah, this comes out in New York at 3 o'clock in the morning, and at 6:50 when I wake my kids up to start getting them ready for school, I'm watching this on
Mhm.
Wednesday. Like that's the level of excitement. After that first episode hit, I was just like, oh, this is absolutely different. And like I love the fact that like these characters are true to the characters from the comics. When they were fighting, they were fucking eaten. Like Gambit went out like a G. Wolverine, it wasn't just a Wolverine and Magneto show because they were able to expand to the rest of the characters to show that they actually mean something. I mean, they made us care about Jubilee, which nobody gave a fuck about Jubilee
I've
ever.
never
Yes.
cared about you.
They made Scott cool.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
people just do not understand.
And his
how
beams
hard
were
that
just setting
is.
trees on fire.
Like when he was the one who pointed out to the humans, like, y'all lucky we being nice.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Yeah.
like, yes, that's that Scott that I like.
Well, and, I mean, even so, I kind of likens Scott to like Leonardo from Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
The series never did him any justice. How, like, why if a dude's the leader, he's the leader for a reason.
Yeah, and as a Scott apologist, I was always so mad at the people that loved like Wolverine. Cause I'm like,
Yes.
this dude is the biggest asshole I've ever met in my life.
I love
You
it.
show up to a team, you're 100 and something years old. You're an old man. You crushing on me and my teenage girlfriend, nigga. You want to break us up? You hater? What is wrong
Oh
with you?
shit.
And you don't follow instructions. Why is this guy here? He don't know none of the plans. I never liked that dude. And they finally like gave us the like positive version of Scott. And then especially when Scott was the one that was ready to set it off with the humans, that mattered so much because it's really when he becomes disillusioned with Xavier's dream that he becomes the Scott that is like that you start fucking with, where he's like half Magneto, half Xavier. You're like, and that's the right answer.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
And that's the things I love about this series. And like I'm super excited for what's going to come in season 2. And with that being said, I'm taking Tati's stand. I'm going to give this an extra large bag of popcorn, but also I'm going to give this some Chinese food that I stuck in. So it's a General Tao.
Oh, I didn't know you
Oh,
could do that.
I didn't know we was
What is
sneaking
happening?
stuff in.
No. What is happening now?
Okay, I give it an XL and a baggie of cocaine
Go ahead.
and 2 prostitutes. That's how much I like this.
So here's the thing, Rod. If this was X-Men 87, that would have worked. This is 97. So I'm sneaking in some crack.
Okay, you're right.
Two
You're
crack
right.
whores.
What?
Well, if we can add things, then I'm gonna have my popcorn and 2 apple pies. Okay, how about that?
Yeah, you
but
gonna watch it in the
you're
closet in the
fucking them.
theater?
Yeah, sure. Peeking through the blinds.
What? Real quick, folks, before we wrap this up, and it's been such a pleasure having Ron and Karen from Black Baby Tips on, having the amazing Tatiana join Justin and I for this huge episode. Had 2 pieces of trivia I wanted to share real quick. Kevin Feige had only 2 conditions for the show. 1, the original X-Men, the animated series voice cast had to return, at least for those that were alive. And 2, the rights for the theme tune of the series had to be obtained. Because you can't do this without that theme song. I mean, come on, it's iconic. And then we did get some Patreon thoughts. And folks, remember, you sign up at Patreon at patreon.com/media popcorn. You're guaranteed to have your thoughts or feelings of that show, movie, right on that episode. So Jeffrey McKinney wrote, I thought it was a good show. I'm not going to give it all the flowers. Cyclops didn't pussy out too much, and Wolverine didn't dominate the story. I'll give it a large popcorn. All right. Well, Jeffrey, you sound a little bit of a hater there, but it's okay.
Yeah.
We love you still.
I'm starting to doubt your commitment to the X-Men using words like pussy out.
Sean the Terrible wrote, fucking phenomenal. 3 exclamation marks. So that's Sean's take. And then Darren Patterson wrote, this is the best thing that Marvel's put out in a long time.
Yep.
When I first heard about this show, I thought that it was going to be a fun little nostalgia bait kind of show. Instead, I got a show that had incredible animation, fantastic dialogue, and elevated the material of the old show to a whole new level. It tackled serious topics like discrimination, bigotry, found family, father figures, and human nature, while also giving you incredible action scenes and emotional moments that made it better than some live action shows. I also loved how they made Wolverine a supporting character and gave some of the other X-Men a chance to shine. Cyclops, Jean, Storm, and Rogue got more character development, urgency, and badass moments than they ever did in any of the movies. Not only is this one of the best Disney Plus series, but it might just be the best depiction of the X-Men we've ever gotten.
Yep.
XO popcorn all the way. And I
Mhm.
agree with that wholeheartedly. And that's why I am now nervous for the live action one, because they hired this white guy. He's got some good credits behind us,
Right.
like, but he's like in theater, I think, and like he's written like some Shakespearean adaptation stuff.
But
I just don't.
didn't they say they
hard.
want Coogler to direct it though?
I've heard that, and that makes sense because you want
Yeah.
someone who's really reliable, who can do a great job with the.
Yeah, and
a
who's great
huge
with
budget.
marginalized voices too.
Yep,
Yeah.
but I don't know, yo. It's
I
like
think
it feel-
if you get Coogler, I feel more excited about that than them announcing just the writer.
Me too.
Because I think because Coogler's Black Panther is all about Black women. Period. Like, and the fact that he understood that from the comic books to the movie is like some shit you never see straight dudes do. They just don't. They'll never understand. And he was like, no. The core of this movie is the women are right, and this nigga need to shut the fuck up and listen. So if he can do something like that with X-Men, I think you can get a good X-Men. I'm with you in that. I care a lot about the diversity behind the camera on this, because if they can blow this so easily, because there's so many white people that think they get X-Men that just do not.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. That's
And
very.
I think it's important given the diversity of the people that fuck with the X-Men 97, and given the white cast of Fantastic Four, when Feige had deliberately said he wanted to make it a diverse film, there's going to be a lot of pressure to get this right, and I don't know if Marvel has the goods anymore, but you know,
honestly,
we'll find out.
I think because of the things that's transpired within Marvel in the last I guess 4 years, with the Disney Plus shows, the pandemic, and everything. I think that we are primed for a resurgence of Marvel, and I think the X-Men is really going to be on the forefront of making that happen. I actually see X-Men as going to be the thing that brings it back.
I think so too.
To prominence.
Yeah.
From your lips to God's ears to our microphones, we hope that that's true, Justin. Rod and Karen, please tell the folks how they can follow you. I'm sure they already know, but just in case they're new to the Black Eyed Tips family.
I just appreciate that Howard Cosell level sign off. That was beautiful.
Yeah,
what you just did. I hate to almost point it out and ruin the momentum, but it was just so good. It needs to be applauded. And for us, just find the Black Guy Who Tips everywhere you get whatever. So if you get your podcast, search the Blackout Tips on all podcast streaming apps. We're on there. If you want to go to our website, theblackguywhotips.com, and our social media, I'm Rodimus Prime on Twitter.
And I'm say that again, that as in DAT.
And our show is the Blackout Tips on Instagram, and TBGWT on Twitter.
Thank you all so much for joining us. Tati, how can people follow you?
You can find me on Instagram at Boricua Collins.
That's right. You can follow me at Frodo _Blackens on Threads and Instagram. That's where I'm at. Drunk Black History, Wednesday, June 19th. We're celebrating Juneteenth at Littlefield in Brooklyn. Come through. We're going to laugh, drink, learn some history. DrunkBlackHistory.com. And of course, you can follow the show at Medium P Podcast on all social media platforms. Go to MediumPopcorn.com. Click at the top where it has a survey that you can enter. You'll enter a contest if you complete a fan survey. Let us know what you think about the show, what you like, what drew you to the show, why you love the show, or even any feedback you got for us. You fill that out, you get entered into a contest where you might get some free swag from Justin and I. So MediaPopcorn.com to fill out that free survey. And Justin, how can people follow you as well as support the show financially if they choose to, my brother?
Well, guys, you can follow me at J Brown Did It on the socials. But if you want to support this show and keep the lights on, y'all need to go over to patreon.com/medium popcorn. We have $2, $5, $10, and $15 packages over there. Our entire backlog is on Patreon. We have bonus episodes. We have mini shows. There's a lot of stuff on Patreon that you would love. So again, it's patreon.com/medium popcorn.
Listen, everybody, if we get 10 from this episode, if we get 2 new Patreon subscribers within the next 2 weeks, I will live stream myself making an apple pie. Okay?
Hey, whose kitchen? Not my kitchen.
Hold on.
Live stream.
Hold on.
Baby.
Brandon.
No questions are allowed.
No.
Just
It's not a question. It's a comment
from scratch.
No questions
because
are allowed.
on this show, you have basically told us that you fuck apple
I
pie.
don't fuck apple pies. I did not say I fuck pies. I said, well, y'all don't know what I'm doing with the pie. But
Will they get the live stream? Will they live stream the closet with the phone and apple pie?
No, just
to make
show you
it.
the pie.
Okay.
And then I might show another. I might add another photo to Patreon where I'm like going in the closet and I do the shush, and then that's it. Okay.
And then another picture of the pie with a hole through it.
Yeah, with a
This
whole
ain't American pie. I'm not gonna, y'all keep thinking I'm gonna fuck this pie. I might just be hungry.
and you on the way to the hospital with 3rd-degree burns.
Oh no! Oh, I thought you were gonna say because I had the sugars from eating the pie.
And you got the sugars in your dick.
Well, folks, again, remember patreon.com/media popcorn. Subscribe, and if we get 10 new Patreon subscribers from this episode release date to now.
We're doing from 2 to 10.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That number went up.
The goalpost. You moving the goalpost.
If we get 10. If we get 10
Listen,
new
guys,
Patreon.
we gotta up the ante if Brandon's on a fucking
I'm not gonna fucking try.
Oh, so at 2, you just making it. At 10, you're fucking it.
Yeah.
Listen, just subscribe and we'll see what happens. Okay, baby?
That better be hot. It better be hot.
Patreon.com/media popcorn. Also, leave us a 5-star review on your favorite podcast application or even on Spotify. We will read it on the show. And yeah, again, patreon.com/media popcorn. If you want to leave us a voicemail, speakpipe.com/media popcorn. Let us know what you thought of this episode, our guests, and X-Men 97 yourself. So until then, Justin and I, we appreciate you. We love you. We thank you so much for celebrating this milestone with us. And we'll talk
We
to you all
take you in the
next week.
closet. We bake you.
I'm not gonna bake anybody.
What
about
through
just
the blinds?
We
You're
get the
baking
phone.
something, Brandon. You're baking something for Patreon subscribers.
Justin, he's baking this in your house.
No.
Not in my kitchen.
and then I disappeared. Justin's like, Paula's like, where's Brandon? You're like, I think he might be in the closet. Look, be
Check
careful.
Check the closets.
I don't
Get the
know.
kids out the house and check all the closets.
Wash all the coats.
Watch out.
Jackson,
Might
just
have
put that
crumbs
on.
in 'em.
That's not ice cream.
Don't touch that.
All right, y'all.
That's a different apple pie a la mode.
Oh, my
Ugh, God. All right. Thanks for joining us for our 700th episode. We'll
Oh,
talk to y'all next week, yo. Peace.
gosh.
Medium popcorn. We are 2 niggas spoiling movies. Yeah. Brandon Collins, that's me, and Justin Brown for your movie needs. Medium popcorn. Woo! You haven't seen it, well, we're gonna spoil it. Spoil it in your face. That's your warning. So if you get pissed, it's all your fault.